This conference will now be recorded.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the select board is muted on the video. Thank you so much.
The idea of the monthly was to make sure you guys were getting regular payments. But if that's a problem because of, you guys don't wanna have to deal with it, it
We're
doesn't.
looking for continuity because most of the other towns have agreed with the quarterly.
Quarterly,
Are doing a quarter, and that's kind of, our bookkeeper would like it that way, so that's why we were going with that.
I don't
And we
see
were
it
told
being a
that
problem.
most towns do stuff quarterly, so.
Okay.
We do our fire hall lease monthly, which is the one that I can think of that's somewhat similar, but quarterly is fine in my book.
If you would agree to that, that would be great.
Just to recap for the internet viewers, sorry that we were muted there for a minute, that's my fault. We called to order at 6 PM with all members of the board present, and we welcomed Southern Berkshire Ambulance, and we're going over our contract that we're finalizing with them. So right now we're discussing payment. So, sorry, I just wanted to recap for the people who are joining us. So all that being said, does it please everyone if we go with a quarterly payment, but stick to the town's proposed wording, and just change monthly to quarterly? So it would read, contractors shall provide the town with a written invoice for services rendered on a monthly basis. Each such invoice shall represent charges totaling 1/4 of the total payment due for the fiscal year in which the services were rendered to the town. All invoices rendered shall be due and payable within 30 days of the invoice date. Payment and performance obligations to the town during fiscal years succeeding fiscal year 24 shall be subject to extension of this agreement by the town and the appropriation or other availability of funds to the town.
with the exception that you accidentally said monthly in the
Yeah.
first sentence instead of quarterly.
That was my answer.
So,
We agreed, were we okay with that, Luke?
Yeah, that was,
Yeah.
okay.
okay, so we'll go with quarterly and the town's wording for that one. I'm happy to get together a clean copy of this.
Yeah, that, if you could do that, that would be good, and then,
There's a couple of typographical,
Yeah.
on the schedule of payments, the last two say 2023 and it should be 24.
Yep,
Yeah.
good catch.
Um,
Sad how many eyes it takes to catch all
Yeah.
those.
that may get slightly changed just based on,
Well, and we'll change the
if we change,
from the 15th to the,
well, it will be, it's really gonna be an issued on July 1st. And then it's due and pay, or it's due on July 30th, assuming that's when the invoice is.
by July 3rd.
Yeah.
right? Yes.
so, question for you.
Yeah.
You already have an invoice that says all that.
Yeah,
Do you wanna just use that one, or would you like us to
Um,
issue another one?
well,
Copy one.
the problem that we're having is our financial team won't let us pay an amount that large without a contract.
Oh, no, I understand, I
So
mean,
we-
once this is finalized.
I don't, well, we'd have to figure out, but I don't think it's a big deal one way or another. We can,
If
we'll
you
be
want
in touch.
another invoice,
If
let
for-
us know.
Yeah, if for some reason they say that we can't pay it, which I don't see any reason why we couldn't, then we'll let you know, and we'll make sure to get
That's
you the money. Section 8 is the next one I see, which is just about 24-hour availability. Oh, and really it's more about the location of where the ambulance is housed, so I talked with Kevin, at the end of last week, and we discussed that if for some reason Southern Berkshire did need to relocate, maybe not this year, but maybe if we keep this renew this contract on an annual basis. It seemed that Southern Berkshire was just opposed to having the town have to approve a new location.
So are you saying if we move our place of operation, you want to be notified? Is that what that?
Yeah, that's why I changed it to.
Yeah.
I think
I said invented, the service cannot be provided, no, wait, what was it? If for some reason the contractor moves from 31, it will notify the town. Because obviously, we're not gonna move, I mean, the only way we've written use if the building burned down or something, and we would have to go to the firehouse in, Barrington or, you know, the town, the highway department, they're there where they could house a bunch of some other big garage.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna go very far from there.
you're not gonna go to Egremont or
No.
something, right?
No,
So
no,
that,
no.
I mean, I think that was why the town put that provision in, just to protect us.
Well, you're probably looking at response time to your town.
Yes, yeah.
We'll get to that in a minute.
So I'm okay with accepting the new wording. It
As a-
I'm fine.
Yeah, me too.
works for us.
Thank you.
The next I see is in 13 financial reporting. It's just saying that the quarterly report should be submitted within 15 business days rather than 5 after the end of the
Yeah.
quarter. I have no problem with
I
that.
think that's fair.
I agree.
Producing the report might take more than 5 days.
Thank you.
Southern Berkshire did delete Service Line Contractors Board for the town to designate a representative to Southern Berkshire Board.
We would, you're welcome, our meetings are open every month, you know. If you guys have a concern, if somebody has a concern, you can sure send someone. If they can attend our meeting, we'll be glad to listen to any concerns that you have as a town. And we were looking at, if we do this with all 6 towns, that's 6 members we're adding to our board of directors. That makes the board, we'll have as many on the board as we do employees, and that
They
gets a
bring the
little,
board up to 18 members.
that gets a little overwhelming, and we just, you know, be difficult to manage.
Any objections to getting rid of that section?
I think it's okay.
Thank you.
I have a suggestion though, but as people rotate out,
Eileen.
I'm sorry, you didn't recognize. As people rotate out, would you consider designating someone from the towns? As people retire from the board, so not to increase the number, but in consideration.
If they, let me answer that with a caveat, sure. as we're trying to build a new, board where we're looking for people that meet certain
Yeah,
criteria.
of course.
So that we can get the good mix of people that we want.
That's why I would say
So,
in consideration, we
yes.
consider.
Yeah, definitely.
I think there's a number of reasons. I think, okay, we're all on board with that, that will go. 14, general legal compliance. I think, Kevin, when we spoke, is Southern Berkshire favorable to just change, deleting some of the words in that sentence and having it be contractor, any of its employees shall obtain at their sole cost and expense all required permits, franchises, approvals, licenses, and or certificates necessary for the performance of its obligations pursuant to this agreement?
Yes. We just removed the subcontractors
Subcontractors and agents.
Yeah, that's all we're kind of.
If there's no objection, we'll leave that in there as it's reworded.
Fine with me.
17, termination of contract. There's two different changes here. One is the town was just hoping for specificity about non-payment termination. And Southern Berkshire proposed 60 days of non-payment. That works for me. Does it work for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. Now, termination on either party's convenience. I think, so it was initially 45 days. We have three numbers floating around here, 30, 45, and 60.
I had 60 in my
We
lap.
decided 60 the other night.
60 is good because it allows the town time, God forbid,
Right, yeah.
and allows the ambulance time.
60 is good on either side, it gives either side have more room.
60 days, go to everyone, we'll do 60. So Southern Berkshire deleted conflict of interest section, which the reasoning, as I understand it, is that conflict of interest really applies to public employees. The only case where I could see it affecting Southern Berkshire is if a public employee leaves their public office or is also part of Southern Berkshire, and then conflict of interest law could still apply to them. But, it doesn't necessarily need to be in here because it's just part of Mass General Law. So, does anyone feel strongly that we need to have that in there? Okay. Which will change all the numbering,
Right.
but
That's fine.
that's, I don't think anyone responds to that. We'll move on to specifications of ambulance service, so, yeah, this is one, response time. So Southern Berkshire had proposed at least 90% of responses shall be no greater than 16 minutes, 30 seconds. Though, extenuating circumstances. But now you're wanting to propose 5 minutes of response within 5 minutes of being dispatched.
Correct.
I guess the response means what, that you deploy?
We leave our station.
If a call comes in to dispatch us to Monterey, we are out of the door within 5 minutes.
What's your typical time now? Is that an average? Or is that?
It is an average from when the phone is, when the 911 call is received to when they dispatch it to when we leave. That's an average time right now.
It's an average.
And so the averages, response times were in the high teens. So you
Correct.
must be leaving on average in much less than 5 minutes to be in Monterey.
It really does depend. I mean, during the daytime, a lot of times they're already in the ambulance when they get the call, so that's really gonna shorten the times.
So
Or if
my,
they're just coming in from a call and finishing up, then, takes a few minutes to leave one patient and get the truck ready and head out, maybe over the bus. So it's gotta be, it's an average, yes.
my only question was, the data that you provided us with response times before, it only had from when the call was dispatched to being on scene in Monterey.
Yeah.
Do you also have the data for leaving, from leaving Southern Berkshire? From the
From when-
time of the call to leaving Southern Berkshire?
It's something I could research, I don't have it
Yeah.
readily available.
Is it part of that?
That's part of the
software?
dispatch, no, that's unfortunate.
I would have to get that through the sheriff's control because they're.
That's the only concern that I have about keeping track of it this way is that we had the other one, you had it for us ready to go pretty easily, it seemed like. The other thing that I think we need to change is responding to every call, right? Because sometimes Southern Berkshire is dispatched and for some reason or other can't respond.
Exactly.
Could we go with 95% of calls?
I think that's a hard thing to put a number on.
So I did have a,
What we do now and what's standard operating procedure is that if we're your primary. If you call us and our
I
one
see
rig or
what-
2 rigs is out, then you would, dispatch knows that, and they would automatically go to one of our mutual aid services, and they would be the ones responding.
That's a hard one to give a number to, Justin, because what if we're not available for 94% of the calls, and then we're not in compliance with the contract? Anytime we're not available, we notify the sheriff's department that we're not available anyway, as was already documented in here.
Yeah, I mean, but what we can't have is respond to every call, right? That's
Every
100%.
call that we're available for.
The way that-
Or change the wording to something like that.
My only
Every
concern
call.
with availability is I understand that usually you have in the daytime 1 staffed ambulance, 2 staffed ambulances,
Most of the time, right?
and then at night,
Two.
2 staffed ambulances
Our goal is 2 ambulances 24/7.
with people in the station or some people on
Yes,
call
yes,
from home.
they're all in the station.
Everybody's there,
unless they're on a call.
unless
Unless
it's-
Yeah, trying to call. That's my only concern because I know,
Let me give you a comment. This is nothing different than we've been doing for 50 years. It's the exact
Yeah.
way we've been giving you service in everything. You know, that we've always operated. If we, for whatever reason, cannot respond, then automatically in mutual aid service, whether it be Sandusfield, New Marlboro, Lee, or whoever, depending on where the call is.
Yeah.
That's what happens now, and that's what we will continue doing. We're not changing the way we provide our service to you at all.
I understand, I just think that there needs to be something in the contract about, if there's gonna be something about response time, about
Expectation of
expectations
response.
of
yeah.
response, because if for some reason Southern Berkshire is struggling to staff 2 ambulances and 30% of the calls are going to New Marlboro or Sandusfield or Otis, that's a problem. Because we don't give any money at this point to New Marlboro or Sandusfield or Otis ambulance, right? We give 0. I know, right, New Marlboro is giving some money to Southern Berkshire for advanced life support calls.
Yep.
Right now, we give no money to New Marlboro or Sandusfield or Otis. We give all the money that we are dedicating to ambulance services is going to Southern Berkshire, so we need some kind of guarantee that Southern Berkshire is gonna cover the vast majority of the calls. Or we need to rework, and in general, I don't think it's been a problem, but we need kind of a guarantee that Southern Berkshire is gonna be covering the vast majority of our calls, otherwise we need to probably be paying New Marlboro or Sandusfield or Otis.
So
That's
just the fire chief.
Well, all of
sent me-
those are based under our mutual aid agreements anyway.
So the fire chief sent me a note today saying that, his concern is about the frequency of non-availability. So he said that there were 5 so far since mid-spring that you guys weren't able to field, which I think if I'm not mistaken, there were about 40 calls in 2023, so that'd be more than 10%. And so that was the concern he raised, that he's worried about the number of calls you guys haven't been able to field. And of course, I have no idea, there's a lot of reasons why that might occur, presumably you had other calls, or there was only 1 ambulance that day, I don't know.
And both of those are perfect scenarios where
But, yeah.
that could happen.
Without any context, I can't answer.
Me neither.
Yeah, so, and no one, I'm a little bit familiar with how Southern Berkshire operates, because I have been on the volunteer fire department for a few years. And so I've seen Southern Berkshire respond to the vast majority of medical calls in Monterey for years. And I haven't personally noticed any difference. I remember, Southern Berkshire is out on a transport and a call or whatever the case may be, and we get Sandusfield or Otis or New Marlboro, but it is few and far between in my experience. I haven't noticed a problem with it, but the town would like some guarantee, so could we do something, to 5% of calls within 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, we could do that, and we could do something that is subject to review and quarterly, or even every 6 months. Something like that, to review the response time. I mean, you're gonna be getting the reports every 3 months anyway with the data.
Do the reports show if Southern Berkshire was,
Not able to,
I guess that's something that the
It
town,
shows what was spent.
well, but the town of Monterey can work to know when New Marlboro or Sandusville Road was dispatched. In my personal experience, I have not seen a problem. It seems like standard, like when the town of Monterey Fire Department is in another town and
Exactly.
another town is telling the town of Monterey Fire Department, but we do need a protection. Is
I have
80,
an idea. I
what's
have an
that?
idea. He
Yeah.
told me I couldn't talk, but I mean.
I didn't say.
No, I think, because it's also, like you started with one thing, the other, I think there are two things you said, so it's this 5 minutes with the expectation of because now we're in a contract, which is before we weren't. So I would put in the expectation of 2 fully staffed crews, that is your standard operating procedure anyway. So I would put that in the contract, to say expectation of 5 minutes with the 2 fully staffed crews, and what you said.
That's in another paragraph, so it's what I.
But then refer to it back here again, because this is a very important clause, right? Because that's what's gonna determine this, and then what the chief just said, and review quarterly of, did we hit the mark of what's going on, you know?
We're gonna have to get providing these financial reports quarterly anyway.
Yeah, and
We're gonna get quarterly reports about response time and whatnot.
And if you wanna circle back to that, Justin, and add in that report
yeah,
that we provided you the data when we weren't available.
Is that
I
something that you keep track? Is that, because I know that,
I can work to get it.
yeah,
I have to get some of that data through the sheriff's department because they do the dispatch.
is sometimes Berkshire just gonna know Southern Berkshire has 2 ambulances out, we're just gonna call New Marlboro right off the bat.
They know when we're not available.
Yes, they do.
We always tell them we're not available.
Why don't we do that? So going back to 13, reporting.
We're looking for the 2.
The number of calls, the response time for each call, we could add in that list the number of calls Southern Berkshire contractor was not
Or
available.
the number of times we use mutual aid to cover your calls.
Yeah.
Yes, right. And find the expectation of the staffing level and either reference it or put it back in to that paragraph, I think.
Well, the expectation and what you're saying is, I think is a little, you're assuming that we are going to have 2 fully staffed ambulances at all times, and that's, I can't say that 100% of the time.
That's why I said expectation, your
guarantee-
standard operating procedure is that's your goal, and we just wanna kind of codify that. We're
But
not-
I don't think it needs to be in here.
It's not, right now, what we have is that Southern Berkshire will either respond with 2 EMTs or a paramedic and EMT, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't say you're always gonna be staffed with 2
With 2
full
ambulances,
crews.
and
We
don't want
It
that
doesn't
in
say
there.
you have to be staffed, but it's the
I
I got
we've
it.
been working on this for.
Okay, I know, but
I
I'm just
appreciate
saying,
your input,
you know what
but
you're
we gotta
saying.
figure it out. So
So
I'm,
our responsibility is to have if we cannot, knowing that mutual aid will respond to you, and that you folks will be getting
Yeah.
an ambulance here.
yeah, so,
If you're looking for a percentage, Justin, why don't we do 80 or 85?
Yeah.
And we can review that quarterly. If
okay,
there's an issue, then we can always bring it back.
yeah, so
I would vote
I
for
think-
80 personally, but
I think it's hard to not have a percentage because you'd have to come up with some fancy wording about the calls that Southern Berkshire is able to respond to and not.
Right.
Then it will be less than 5 minutes, so if we just say 85% of times that Southern Berkshire's is toned out or dispatched by Southern Berkshire ambulance, they'll be responding to Monterey within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That works for me.
Yeah.
Does that work for?
Yeah.
To the train? I did add to the list, as you suggested in the earlier, about reporting.
Yeah.
About the number of times that Monterey relied on mutual aid. Is that still something that we can include?
Didn't we just include that?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
did, he's just saying he actually included
Yes.
it.
Yeah, I actually did.
Sorry, I misunderstood.
No.
It's okay,
So
it was a double check.
moving on,
Justin,
yes,
so Joe Crecchi was not able to respond. He had something to add.
yeah, Joe, can you unmute yourself, or are you having trouble doing that?
Sure it does. I don't hear
We
it,
can't hear you.
but it doesn't show that it's muted.
Doesn't show you as muted, but you
Jeff.
can hear you.
If you're there, can you try, or someone else who's online, could someone try speaking to see if
Is the volume up?
our audio is the problem?
I can.
Can Joe hear us?
I don't know, let me come.
Yes.
This is Jeff. Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go.
So we can hear Jeff.
This is Jeff.
Can
Thanks,
you
Jeff.
hear us, Jeff?
I can. Everything's good.
Joe's giving us the thumbs up.
Okay,
So
but if we're not.
if
getting a
if we're not
thumbs up,
hearing him, it's probably
You
that
guys
he's
suffer?
muted on his own device.
He's better now, I think.
Joe, can you hear us?
Yeah, but.
But
But
we can't hear you.
you.
We can't hear you, Joe.
Tell him, check your
That's how we feel
volume,
too.
check your volume.
Make sure your mic isn't muted on your end. You're not muted on our end.
I usually.
If he, John, if he has something important and he wants to call
He will.
you
Yes.
on
He's been
speaker.
texting. He's
Okay,
good.
good.
Okay.
He says he's good.
Okay.
He's good, okay.
Thank you.
So that was the thumbs up. The thumbs up was that he was good,
I
not
guess
that he
so,
could
yeah.
hear us. Okay.
So section 5 on page 7, it seems that, sex offender registry information is already covered under Cory checks. And then, if that being the case, I think the town is okay with deleting that section. And we just added that contractor shall provide the town with proof of contractor's personnel Cory checks upon request from the town. If there's no objection, we'll go with that.
That's okay.
Yeah, we did.
There was a section about inspecting the equipment and whatnot at Southern Berkshire,
After the number 6
number 6.
of records.
Record, not.
Kevin suggested to me, if I recall correctly, that he felt like, or Southern Berkshire felt like this is redundant, given they're already doing the reporting and the 990 given to the town.
We're already providing you the insurance information, the 990 stuff, and
The court.
anything that's HIPAA protected, we can't provide you with anyway.
Yeah.
So it seems a little redundant, we're already providing all that stuff anyway.
Yeah, I have no problem taking that.
Neither do I.
So we're gonna take that out.
We're gonna take out 6.
Okay, thank you.
And that's it?
The last
no,
thing was
schedule.
just a schedule of insurance requirements. I think we were fine with all the changes to that, other than. And I'm fine with it because I think it's covered generally in the contract and termination clauses, but that specific breach of agreement, immediate termination. I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Susan?
Yeah,
Okay,
fine.
we'll get rid of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Thank
So
you.
are you gonna print this up, or do you want us to print it up?
I can get you a clean copy. I think I have everything on this.
Good, okay.
And
That'd be
then
great.
Then,
we'll probably sign it next week
okay.
officially.
And then we'll
If
send
you can get it back to me, Justin, we'll get our end signed and I'll get it back to you.
But send it to us anyway, or send it to Kevin
Yes.
even before.
Well,
you
maybe
sign
I'll
it.
send it to you all
Yeah.
first, and once we get your signature, we can put ours on.
Exactly. Yeah, we can do that.
So
Well
it'll
done,
take longer than.
well done on all fronts.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank
Thank you,
And
gentlemen.
thanks
Thank
for
you very
coming
much.
out in force. It was a big part of your evening. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Yeah.
We figured between
Sorry
all
we
of us,
left
we
you
could
out.
answer all the questions.
I know, it was gonna take ridiculous amounts of time.
Otherwise,
but
Justin and I
that-
will be emailing for another month and.
I know, right? Definitely easier.
Wait till you get into the computer policy.
Please, no.
Don't make an email.
Do you have
What
copies
means-
for us?
First thing. I will get to it.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Very
Thank you, nice to meet all
If
of
we
you.
have any issues with
Hope I don't have to
this,
see you on the
we'll let you
ambulance.
know, but
I
I
might
think
have
we'll
some
get.
ideas for
Yeah.
the board, give me some money, I thought.
I have no problem
Raise,
sending it.
well,
to you.
stop.
All right, thank you.
I might have some ideas.
All right,
Okay.
nice to meet you.
Thank you.
You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you,
You too.
really.
Have a great
Joe,
evening.
see you later.
And there'll be no calls tonight.
Yeah, like I said, I hope I don't have to meet you on the ambulance.
Alright. What's up next?
Fire company lease. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I don't care if you stay or not.
Yeah.
Okay, so I talked to the lawyer yesterday afternoon. Okay. Well, I actually talked to him Friday and I talked to him Monday.
Lucky you.
And what he basically said is that we can, he got approval from the state, whoever the Department of Labor is,
Right.
if we incorporate
I know you paid for it.
in the lease agreement a higher rental fee, they can manage the work and they don't have to do prevailing wages.
Ah,
Okay, that's the good news. The bad news, it's not bad news in my opinion, it's gotta be a 5-year lease. And, okay, so the other issue about it is moving forward, because typically they're requesting more than $20,000, is how does the town approve that expense? So we already have 90,000 that the town has approved, right? But if we get into years out, how does the town approve that? I put that question to him and he hasn't answered me back. You know, what had happened was I did draft a letter for Sean to say what our position is about prevailing wages and the length of contract. And here, I got a copy for you, and he said he's fine with it because, you know, typically when I've done labor or done negotiations with contract, you say what, this is your position, and then you let them, the next party respond.
right.
And so I don't have, you know, it's still out there, the question to Donna and Chris, the two lawyers, how do we do this in the future? We know that the town has allocated warrant money. We would have to vote on it as a town to take the money out of the warrant and convert it to be used as lease money. You have to, we can't, the select board cannot arbitrarily.
No, I totally follow you.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. So in drafting a lease, we would come up with a rent that included,
The $90,000.
right, but I'm thinking like, if we imagined we didn't have that money and we were just drafting a lease for next year that would start after the next town meeting, say, it would be the rental price rolled in the rent would be the $30,000 of capital improvement.
Yeah, but
assuming that's it. But now I'm just trying to picture this in pieces. So now we have to deal with what we do with the historical money.
Right now, we're dealing with the historical money. And if the town, in the town meeting, approved that the money that was in the current warrants, you know, the 3 different years,
Right.
that money would be used to pay for the lease expense on the firehouse company building.
Right.
But, and also in there, as part of the lease agreement, they have to state what they're gonna do.
How the money, what
What
projects the
the
money will be
project
used to cover.
It wouldn't be arbitrarily you give them, you know.
Right. I'm
These-
just trying to figure out how
What?
since the rental agreement stipulates that we're giving them a monthly amount.
Well, they'd have to accumulate it over time and do the work. That's because.
Right, no, I'm just trying to figure out how we allocate both future, capital improvement
Well,
monies
that's-
and past capital improvement monies into a stable
Well, you could,
lease amount.
well, I gotta get Sean to sit down with it,
Okay,
you know, but this is basically saying, this is our position. To not pay prevailing wages, this is. And
right,
that, you know, it came down to that, what was our goal? We know that the prevailing wages,
it's gonna kill us,
it's
right?
gonna kill us.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that was the goal, but he says, that, you know, you told me you don't wanna pay prevailing wages. I have confirmed, he sent me the email from the state guy saying you don't have to do it, basically. Took me a while to figure it out, it's about 3 pages. Yeah, that's like that.
So essentially, you have to now sit down with Sean, and the goal would be to produce a lease for 5 years, in which they would stipulate what improvements they're planning to do, presumably with some type of timeline, and we would come up with a rental agreement that incorporated past monies and future monies.
Yeah, there's things you can do, I mean, when you
Okay.
think about it, you could say the first year you give him more of that money so he can get the work done. It doesn't
Right, yeah,
necessarily have to be.
Be monthly.
It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be evenly spread out,
Exactly,
you
okay.
know, which we gotta understand what they're gonna do, but he says, you know, speaking as the lawyer, legally, this is the best I can do for you.
Which I think is pretty good, actually.
Well, he says, it only takes one person to say, you're not within legal, and he goes, you're gonna spend a lot of money defending it against the state.
I agree.
Oh,
So-
sorry, I missed that. I'll have to get the replay.
Yes, Mickey?
So basically, and I'm just gonna use a round number, we're increasing the rent on the firehouse to $4,000 a month.
No.
Just added a little bit there.
Okay.
But they are going to tell us what they're going to spend that $30,000.
Yeah, they are gonna have, it has to be laid out
Otherwise-
specifically in the contract. They will do these improvements on the building.
Right, and they will show that they have done those.
But yeah, they will be in violation of the contract if they don't do it. Yes.
Once we adopt the capital policy, will that 30,000 go through the capital policy?
Well, the lawyer hasn't answered that question. You had stepped out. I said,
Yeah, sorry.
we had 90,000 that the town has already approved. And so what the lawyer said was, the town would have to vote on taking that 90,000, the 3 years of 30,000 each, and we use that money to pay for the lease of the firehouse. And then we would have to sit down with the firehouse and say, okay, you're gonna complete this work, we'll have to come up with a schedule of payments. It's all about negotiating. What are they gonna do?
So it could be through the capital policy.
Yeah,
once
but
we-
then what happens after the 90,000
Yeah.
is spent? He hasn't answered that question. I suspect he probably went back to Don. I don't want to speak.
Well, and the reality is that the $90,000, like, based on current building costs, doesn't
not a
cover a
lot,
lot of
right.
work,
It
frankly.
doesn't
Even
cover-
without prevailing wages.
Just the kitchen.
Right. But, so there is the other question, in future,
Right,
how do we do it? I don't have an answer for you right now.
so
That's the goal, is to have it, that whatever the capital projects are,
yes,
they're spelled out in the lease. There's a 5-year term, but that the monies that we're paying in rent include the capital process so that they can go ahead and get the work done without it being
yes.
If you,
prevailing.
did you have a question? Because I was gonna say the history was, people worked on the premise, we'd give them the money.
Right,
And they would go spend it, but the
no, this is a better plan.
lawyer said you can't do that
Yeah.
because it's a nonprofit.
So my other question to that was, oh no. I don't know if it fits in this under the lease, but the usage of the firehouse for the town of Monterey. So like the insurance for the rink and all that is covered through the town of Monterey or through the fire department?
There is I don't remember the specifics. There is an insurance clause in the lease agreement that the firehouse has proposed. That paragraph on on the insurance, is the same one they had in the last contract. I asked the lawyer specifically, we would like to see what the value of that is and more detail of it. And typically in the business world, you ask for insurance certification.
Correct, that's what I'm
Okay,
asking.
so
Yeah.
that's what I've asked. And we wanted to also, there was a phrase in there about what is the deductible. And I asked Melissa said nobody's ever raised questions about that. But I think we need to know what the deductible is, and that we should, on an annual basis, have a certification of insurance. That's typical
That's
lease.
standard,
I know. but
Right, that's what
it
I'm
hasn't been done. And two,
really.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
well, I
On the
did
record.
get the value of everything from Don with the
Right.
tax assessment.
And this question might not be right for the lease, but, because, just between the town master plan and the flooding that's happened in the county and some of the resiliency planning, we don't really talk about like designating that as a shelter for the town if we have a problem. But my understanding is moving forward, that's kind of why they need the commercial kitchen. There are a lot of reasons why they're spending this money, even though it's a nonprofit, for the public good of the town. So I don't know if this can be taken care of now. I just want to raise
I think
it and
that's
see how we marry
I
it.
think that would be more, that would be the next stage of, because I think, the town needs to vote on that kind of a capital investment.
That's why
You know,
that's exactly why I'm raising
That's
it.
the first I've ever heard about it, and that's a pretty important thing. the possibility of using that site as a designated
I
shelter.
think we should think about that.
Changes my
Yeah, but-
perspective, I mean, I was already supportive of it, but I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
wow.
but when you take a look and you say how much square footage is in there, how many people are you gonna get in there?
I don't know, but
It's the biggest thing we got.
Well, I know, but I mean, you may have to go to,
A barn.
another town or something, I know. That's
Yeah,
another,
or-
I think that's another discussion.
It's another thing, I just wanted to, and that will come under the capital plan policy and
Right.
public good and use, but I just wanted to say, but in bringing this to fruition, you're putting all of that like kind of
Right.
in line to have the discussions, is that correct?
Right,
So I
yeah.
think that's a big step in a right, big direction.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
On an
it's gonna,
emergency
it's gonna be
basis,
the
it could be quite a
process,
few,
it's a process, it's not gonna be done overnight.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right.
Should we invite,
Yep.
Justin in or?
Yeah, there he is.
Don't-
Oh, my goodness. All right,
Congratulations on that, that's a big movement.
well,
Well,
getting the information, now getting agreement.
I think having the lawyer say, this is what is in the best
Can
interest of
do,
the
right.
town. And two is, the fire company had recommended a 1-year lease. And,
We're invested in them and it's a long-term
We're invested in
relationship.
them, we have a history of investing
Yeah,
in
it's
them.
ridiculous to
Two
one
is
year.
doing a lease is not easy.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to come back and do it.
Exactly.
Every
Good job.
freaking year, no.
So capital plan policy, so thank you Susan for working on this.
Oh, no problem, so I, just for the record, I shortly before the meeting emailed both, Frank and Justin the revised, and I believe you too, the revised capital plans policy. that we-
Michelle there, she had-
Making the
written
changes
me an
that,
email. I didn't send it
and I
out
sent her
till
one too.
You did send her one?
Yeah, I
Okay.
Making the changes
No.
that we discussed, last week.
Yeah, so the first change is just all capital proposals must be complete and submitted by January 10th for the upcoming financial year, including an implementation schedule.
So I moved
We-
the
Thank you for-
implementation
thank you for
schedule
putting
up
it-
from below.
Thank you for putting it. I
Well-
gave him the 10th, I wanted the first, but I gave him the 10th.
But I also moved up the implementation schedule because it had been buried
Right,
in
yeah,
one
I
of the other
noticed
ones,
that.
and I thought it was key that that be part of the proposal, it shouldn't be something that someone can say they didn't notice.
Next is, you're just deleting redundancies.
Yes, I was attempting to and I think I may have moved some of them and deleted some
Okay.
of them. Yeah, so like the implementation schedule was deleted because I put it above. I didn't think that the long-term plan belonged there. And, yeah, and the other one was covered under infrastructure.
Yeah. I have no question. Do you want to just make a clean copy and then?
So it's.
A track changes would be helpful for us for our discussion tomorrow.
Sure, and you know what, you can always see the clean copy by doing this. You
Yes.
just take out
Yeah.
markup and say no
Well, I'm-
markup and boom.
But I'm ready to like approve it, sign off
Right.
on it.
I
That's why I
am-
say clean copy, but I guess
am-
it's one of the finance.
But we
usually try to get agreement from both.
right,
I would give him a time frame, let him take a look at it.
Well,
tomorrow,
Yeah.
we're meeting tomorrow.
And if, and if you think you can actually get down 5 more lines.
I'm gonna do it, cause
You're never gonna do it, I'm telling you right now, I tried.
Yeah,
margins, did you do margins?
I didn't play with the font or the
Alright.
margins.
Let's keep it moving.
Yep.
Alright,
Alright,
Also, don't do that too much, Eileen, because these are gonna go into a financial policy.
I'm joking, Right, we want them to be uniform, I know.
Exactly.
Computer and equipment acceptable use policy.
Here, it's 6 pages, it was longer.
That makes us feel better?
Feels better about the capital
Don't shoot
plan.
the messenger, when you can't sleep.
Where did
What-
it come from?
Melissa had gotten it, there's
Okay.
a couple other policies, we went through the user. I deleted some more today. What I'd like to do is give it to you, and then I'll send you a clean copy, a copy you can edit it.
Okay,
But there's not enough time tonight to go through.
no,
No.
and
But
I
it
really
gets
wanna try
everything,
and do it
it gets into blogging and, stuff,
Oh,
so
Did
This
Michelle
is
want to
for-
say anything about the capital plan?
No, I saw her, I thought it said she left, but
Oh.
the thing's still there. I actually have the microphone.
Okay, sorry, I just can't say.
Yeah. But if she had the policy, she might, oh, there
Yeah,
she
there
is.
she is. Do
A
you have anything
kitchen
you
for
wanted
it.
to add to that?
Michelle, can you hear?
Hello, can you hear me?
I think, do you have 2 accounts going on right now, Michelle?
I'm sorry, I just rejoined, maybe I'll go.
There's
There's
an
just an
echo when
echo.
you talk, a big echo.
We have 2 Michelles.
I was hoping for 3.
But-
No, we don't. The other one says
I was
Melissa.
trying to only be one.
Did you have any input on the capital planning
Oh,
policy?
yeah, I'm sorry I'm echoing. But I only felt very strongly that the capital planning policy should be implemented already, and that any lease agreements should reflect the commitment of the town to oversee the spending, and it sounds like that's what's happening. I especially think that a little too much redundancy or resiliency planning is, how about if we take care of the town hall kind of thing? I mean, we're all very good at emergencies, but are we very good at taking care of our day-to-day activities? And my radical idea was that the town should take over the firehouse and make it the emergency center of the fire company and the police, and perhaps even a town hall adjacent. So that's just for thought, food for thought. But I think that's the kind of thing that should have been in the master plan. Am I echoing?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, big.
I'm sorry, baby. I'm leaving. Bye.
Hi, Michelle.
Thank you.
So much echo, thank you. Holy cow. So just
So-
for clarity, this is, the concept behind this is acceptable use of town
Town.
issued computers.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. And the other thing with the IT is that the individual Tom that Melissa's been working with, he's given us some cost about what would it cost to upgrade to 365 on the town computers, because they're all over, some are very old. He's recommended a router. I have a couple calls out to people I know, but I'm not ready to talk about it. So, but we're keep working it on 2 ends.
So this is a first step.
Just a suggestion, check with Roger McDonald. He's done this in the town of Needham. He might have some input
Okay.
that can help you.
I will drop him a note.
I think that would be great. I think he'd be
Get you
helpful.
on
And there will be a budget impact, so it'll be good for us
Yeah.
to know.
So,
Okay, all right.
Okay,
Thank
thank you
you.
for your work on that. It looks like it was, way-
wow, wait till you read it.
Well, whatever that might mean, if you've already reduced it, it's already better than it was, I expect. I hope.
Well, there's still more to come.
Yeah, no doubt.
The next agenda item is Mark Little, appointing Mark Little to the Conservation Commission.
Was he willing to do 6 months?
Was it 3 months or 6 months?
This just says Mark Little, it doesn't say how long.
We got an email and I think it was 6 months.
I know that.
It's 6 months.
Okay,
Boys.
is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Mark Little to the Conservation Commission effective immediately and for 6 months henceforth.
I second the motion.
Any other discussion? We'll call a vote.
Yes,
Yes,
it's unanimous.
and it's unanimous approval. Thank you, Mark, and you set a good example. If other people would like to join the Conservation Commission, please let us know.
Step up.
Town administrator position.
I asked to put that on the agenda, but with Melissa being on vacation, anything I have to say can be.
Okay.
That's my position.
Okay.
Okay, I understand. So she's not here. be like.
I think we all forgot
Yeah.
until it was right in
She
our
called
faces.
me like Friday, that's fine.
Yeah.
I have no problem with waiting.
ADA coordinator position, so there, as I understand it, Melissa updated us on a grant that the town that could be available to the town, but one of the requirements is that we need an ADA coordinator.
I didn't realize, like, had we known before that, even the building commissioner could be the idea?
So,
We
and I just spoke to Don, today
Mhm.
briefly. And what Don has said before and repeated again to me today is that. Don Tirico.
Okay.
Don Tirico is of the opinion that it would be better if the ADA coordinator was someone who is not the building commissioner.
Okay.
Because it's an extra set of eyes on any building project. Don's already gonna be looking at any building project or any, public building. But the ADA coordinator, could challenge the building commissioner and make a grievance or make a complaint about a non-compliant building, whereas if it is the building commissioner, he feels like it's almost a conflict where he's responding to his own complaints. That being said, it sounds like most towns in Berkshire County, the ADA coordinator is either the town administrator or the building inspector. I do have a citizen that I've been working on for over a year, to see if they're interested in doing the ADA coordinator, which would probably respond well to Don Tirico's comments, because then it is not the town administrator, not the building commissioner who may be involved, because my understanding is it's really for public buildings. So this would be kind of a third party look on things.
We don't have that many, so there wouldn't be a huge burden on that person.
No, that being said, that that person left it with me, and I need to get back to them, is that they didn't know if they were capable of doing it, but I think maybe the best way to proceed is to reach out to them. Don Tirico also said that in a pinch, if funding and grant depended on it, he would be willing to fill the ADA coordinator role.
Cause I think it would be better to have one so we could do it than to not have
Yeah.
one because we can't find one to serve.
Non-compensated.
No, but he's paid hourly, so
Paid
it's not a
hourly.
problem.
Oh, that's good, so it's a paid position.
Well,
Depending on who takes it.
yeah, right.
But anyways, so that's where we're at. I guess maybe what I need to do at this point is reach back out to the citizen and make one final, are you gonna do it or not? And then if they are not and no one else expresses interest, then maybe we tell Don that now is the time to step up and we need him to fill the role despite his concerns, which I think are valid concerns.
Right.
Should we try to get something in the Monterey News if this doesn't work out?
We've done that. I mean, we need people on the Conservation Commission, and like Don is willing to do it.
I was gonna suggest if we have any part-time employees who might be appropriate, so we could add hours to them.
Like the Council on Aging, outreach workers, I mean, we would need to discuss with each.
The town clerk, I don't know how that's going,
The problem with combining roles like that is maybe it works for one person, but that person,
Yes,
might leave.
but it
and
might, if they're known to us and we know who they are, do you know what I mean? I'm thinking it might. I was thinking also
It's not a.
maybe a police officer
It's an
that's
interesting
part-time.
idea.
Maybe a police officer that's part-time.
If it were specifically a paid position.
That's why I asked if it was
We
compensated.
don't, but we don't have
It's not.
funding for it.
We don't have.
Oh, you
So
said
we-
hourly.
Because.
If we paid
Building
the
inspector.
building.
Oh, I
Could
see.
try.
The people that are paid would be paid. I misunderstood
Yeah,
that.
it's
That's
unfunded.
why I was thinking about other towns.
It's an
Unfunded
unfunded position, we could mess with we could potentially, like, if, for instance, and I haven't talked to anyone on the Council on Aging, let alone the outreach worker
Right.
herself. If the Council on Aging outreach worker wanted to do it and the Council on Aging was fine with money coming out of their budget to pay
Right.
her, then maybe that would work, but technically, we don't have any money set
So
aside.
that's a good idea then. That's where I was going. I didn't realize with money. And we have someone looking for grants like for that, or we haven't?
Well, so Melissa updated us, I could pull up the
I don't-
specifics.
Yeah.
Basically, we have operated for a few years without an ADA coordinator. But the Massachusetts Office on Disability Planning Grant, program, Mary has her hand up.
Hello. Hi. So it's
All right.
Mary.
Hi.
I'm only on for a minute or two, and I really have to go out. But just to want to make sure you know for the record, I'm glad that you're looking into this. But I wanted Frank and Justin and Susan and everyone to know. Ideally, the ADA coordinator is not just looking at buildings, but they're also looking at parks, the playground,
Yes.
recreation, events,
Anything
and
we can.
programs. So, and working with the library, et cetera. So, about their programs. So thank you. That's it.
All right, thank you, Mary.
Thank you for pointing that out, Mary. It does change my perspective and it's helpful, thank you.
I did overlook that as well.
Yeah, I did too.
It's
I know
probably
better.
part of it.
I know
Good thing
better.
about it.
You know my feeling about the playground and the elder. Yeah,
People keep us on a joke.
Yeah.
no, that's important. It is. It's about access.
I love about democracy.
And it's not just physical access, right?
That's why it takes multiple eyes.
So, okay, I guess what, if there's no opposition, I will reach out to the citizen, see if he's willing to do the training and do it, and if not, Don said he can do it in a pinch. Dark skies, so it's on, Frank or Susan or both went to the,
I thought it was a great presentation. I think now we sit down and talk to Jim about, we need to find a contact with National Grid. We need to bring them in and talk to them. Because if they can't do it, it's when can they do it? They can do it, it's not a question that it's, yeah.
so what are they doing?
So
Well, they're
I
looking
think
for-
there's several different parts to it from my perspective. One would be, the first thing is, I'm raising the question of how many of the streetlights that we have do we actually need? Like, I can honestly say, I do not know what the process was of deciding where to put the streetlights that we do have. We have quite a few, not just here, but in other places. So the upshot of the delivery that was given to us, I would say, is that that in the last 20 years, there's an increasing amount of overlighting. And it's happening both because we have more people and more lights, because people are, despite energy conservation, leaving those lights on more, and because of the changes in technology that have led to the adoption of high Kelvin lights that actually produce more, those lights travel more, it bounces off stuff and produces a lot more glare. So they're actually worse for drivers, which is one of the ironies, right? That in anyone who's driven and had oncoming headlights that are in the blue spectrum and seen how much harder it is to see because it's producing more glare has already experienced that. What?
My truck unfortunately has very bright low beams, and I'm always getting flashed.
Yeah.
For people thinking that it's high beams.
The blue spectrum is really hard on drivers and the environment, and ironically, it can even be a problem for the person who has the beams because of reflectance off other objects, producing glare. So there's a lot of reasons not to be using those high Kelvin lights, right? You want the low Kelvin stuff.
Yeah.
So from and that doesn't even touch the stuff it's doing to wildlife, the stuff it's doing to not being able to see the stars, the stuff it's doing to human health, because there's a lot of data on that. And this guy was a very good speaker. He's from WPI, he's a scientist, this isn't BS. Like, it was very clear, and it's a pretty easy solution. Fewer lights, lower Kelvin. That shield it if there's no other choice. So I'm gonna put out there that I think there's a series of things we could do. Number one, assess with both police and Jim, are there any streetlights we could just decommission?
Mm-hmm. So first question, do we have a list of all of our streetlights?
I have no
Well,
idea.
Not
Well,
that-
I
Jim
can
knows
tell you,
exactly where they
tell you that we get several bills from National Grid that are streetlight charges.
Yeah.
So I don't know if someone can correlate that bill to these lights.
Well, and it really, they're on, like Susan said, it's not just in the center of town, but they're also not on, Hardman Road.
Right.
So it wouldn't be that hard to just drive and see, but it would be, maybe it's easy to just get a list and then go one by one. We also need to think about I'm not sure that I'm clear on why we have them, and maybe there aren't good reasons, but maybe there are.
Exactly, that's my point, I don't,
Yeah,
that's exactly my point.
you know, you do it as a safety issue.
Yeah.
And,
But the question is, like,
'Cause if
what
it's-
are the considerations? Do these lights still meet those? Are there any that could be taken out of service, or do we actually need them? Because if we need them, I'm not trying to do away with them. I just wanna make sure that we actually have asked the question, do we need this light? Is it serving a purpose? What was its intended purpose and is it serving it? Before we just say, oh, well, it must have had a purpose because somebody put it in, right? So one was, are there, do we need all the lights we have? Can any be decommissioned? If not, then that's fine, but I want us to ask the question. Because just because somebody did something doesn't mean they actually had to give support when they did it. They had a reason, but we might not agree with it. Number two, we have an agreement with National Grid to replace the existing bulbs with LEDs. However, one of the things he mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, is that bulbs all the way down to 2200 Kelvin are available, readily available. What he said, and I have no way of knowing if it's true, but it sounds very plausible, is that National Grid may have a large stock of the 3000 Kelvins and be very happy to be getting rid of them because it's now widely
They're
acknowledged that they're really not very good.
Yeah.
And they have the stock and we agreed to take them, so here, have
Yeah,
these 3000 Kelvin lights. But it might be that if we just ask for the other ones, they may well be available and still acceptable under that contract.
Now, Jim was in the community center meeting we had a week ago Monday, and he talked about they're replacing them as they come along, something goes wrong with it. They're not arbitrarily coming into town and starting to replace them.
Gotcha.
Two is we should be encouraging to go to LED because it is cheaper, the
Well,
power.
But we could do 2200.
Right, I agree with you, you want the lower end of the
Right,
spectrum,
exactly.
you don't want the higher end of the spectrum. But, so my suggestion is, we talk to Jim and can we have a meeting with the National Grid group and say, here's the number of lights we have, what are our options,
So what are our priorities, I guess, because I think there's different aspects to it. I think if I had to rank them, like public safety is number one.
I would agree with that.
And then it sounds like energy efficiency for the sake of the environment and for the sake of also saving money is involved, and minimal light pollution is involved. And maybe they're not mutually exclusive.
In fact, I'd argue they support each other.
I know, according to the guy that spoke on Friday night, he implied that this is all can be done. Now,
And the best.
I think the other is, did he say Beckett? He said a couple towns that they're in the process of adopting
Beckett
bylaws and
has
stuff.
done it, and then
already
I
done
probably.
work.
Dark sky bylaw.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean, we need to work, we can work on the bylaw, but we need,
Yeah.
our partner is National Grid.
so is it true that they say that the ones that we're getting are dark sky compliant?
So,
I don't believe that when Jim was in the meeting the other day, he did not say that.
Pepperell is the one that's done the most, Pepperell, Mass.
Yeah.
So supposedly they are, but apparently, how tech keeps changing. So
You can get to the
basically
lower
what's
spectrum.
happened, yeah,
The LED
it-
technology is changing so much. You can get, because I dealt with it in printing. So you can get to the lower spectrum a lot easier now than 3 to 5 years
so
ago.
basically what he emphasized is that the technology is changing so quickly that any of the laws or rules are lagging significantly behind. So that 3000 might have been in the guidelines, but now it's way below that because the cost of the 2200 and the cost of the 3000 are the same, but the 2200, and here's the kicker. It's not only better because it's an LED and costs less money, but it's actually safer. it's safer for the drivers, it's safer for the people under it, like that light produces less glare for everybody. So it's producing less light pollution if you go to 2200, but it's also better for the drivers and for the people walking under it, for a bunch of reasons. So it's like, you don't get that many win-wins like that, you know? Usually there's more trade-offs, but it doesn't sound like there's any trade-offs if you can just get National Grid to agree. I know it was hard to get that contract, but there's nothing wrong with going back and saying, hey, this would be even better for the town to please do this.
So, Susan, do you want to take this on?
Absolutely,
Okay,
I'm happy to.
just, I think you've pretty much laid out what needs to be done, figuring out what lights. I mean, in particular, right now, we're talking streetlights.
Yes,
Right.
What do we have? And then working with Jim and Melissa on what is our agreement with National Grid, how might we be able to negotiate that different? And also figure out what are the benefits of each light, and if there's any that the costs outweigh the benefits. So Susan will do that, thank you, Susan. Talking to the zoning bylaw, the dark sky bylaw, I can't find the number. According to the master plan survey results, 74.6% of people answered that they, yes, to the question, would you support making Monterey a dark sky community?
wow, that's pretty strong.
That's a very strong.
So, that being said, we need to find someone on the planning board or communicate to the planning board, and they already know this, but that if the select board just wants to urge them to propose that to town meeting. Lori, do you know if they've discussed that in particular? Dark sky bylaw, the planning board?
Not yet. Do you
But
want me to,
if-
shall I draft a note to them from us saying that, given the recent information, we'd really appreciate it if they would be willing to take point on drafting a.
Well, it's their thing,
Right,
it's their thing.
okay, so
So-
rephrase, we would love to see the planning board come forward with a dark sky bylaw.
The only reason I wouldn't right now is they're wrapping up the master plan.
Right.
Yeah.
But we should keep it on, and I'll add it to the long-term
Agenda,
list.
Right,
Um,
okay.
because,
Well, and you'll put it on
yeah.
the list.
I think there's so many things.
Yeah.
I just remembered that's
Because
a high,
overwhelming. Yep.
that's a high percentage of people saying they wanted dark skies only bylaw.
Right.
Now, then again, I don't know what people knew when they were answering that question, how much they know the specifics of the dark sky bylaw.
Well,
But-
we'll find out.
Yeah.
Other towns, neighboring towns have done it, and
I don't think it's gonna be that, I mean.
I don't think it's
a
onerous,
natural- Yeah. It's a matter of-
but if it's not onerous, is it effective?
So this is the rare occurrence where doing the right thing generally doesn't cost you more money.
Yeah.
The exception is the people that have like lights that like are directed up or out instead of down.
Yeah.
Might need to either get a different fixture or put a collar in the
Yeah,
fixture,
it-
which would cost them
You
money.
drive over to the community center at night, you know, the National Grid put up theirs tubes and they beam down, but the one light we put up is more projected up, and it's a fixture, needs to be changed, but I'm not criticizing, it's just interesting.
Well, you don't even think about it until you do.
Yeah, I know.
So, I mean, it's
People take
not,
lighting
yeah.
for granted.
Exactly, I mean, I think it's a part educational, but this is an opportunity to get people to pay attention to something they don't, and, you know, also, there's a lot of data showing that people put lights up for reasons that are, you know, like, I put that light up to scare away the bears, it's not going to scare away the bears.
I can justify that.
Okay, so Susan will take the lead on that. So the next thing that I put on the agenda is special town meeting items.
Yeah.
According to release from the school district planning board, or something that I read coming from the school district planning board, they think, they want all the towns to vote to have their town meeting on the same day, October 23rd. They don't have the authority to to require that, they have the authority to make us call a special town meeting to vote on it, but we have a 30-day window in which to do that. With a 14-day posting
October 23rd is a Monday.
requirement, most towns do their special town meetings on weekdays.
Really?
And I think in Monterey's history was weekdays.
Oh, we did.
Weekends, why have we done weekends? I don't know. We've just, since I've been on the board, we've been doing weekends, but Mickey, going back, do you remember weeknight special town meetings?
Oh, special ones, no, I don't remember any. But
That's
then-
my recollection. I think Scott would say that. We did weeknight.
Yeah,
Scott was
I
probably-
honestly don't remember, because it probably interfered with work or something.
No, I mean,
I
I
used to never
suspect
be
a
able
lot
to
of
go to
people
because
would
they
have
want
that
Saturday
same
mornings and I work
conflict.
Saturdays.
I mean, it's an evening, but,
I think you probably need lower attendance.
and
So-
we already have to worry about low attendance.
But the other thing is, they just don't have that, once they make the recommendation, we have 30 days
Right,
with
so it's-
14-day notice, so there is a small time frame. That being said, if they're thinking October 23rd, they're probably gonna be sending the recommendation along end of September, early October. So we should have anything that we want to go on that warrant as well, ready to go.
So I'm gonna throw out there the following difficult question. If we know how this town reacts. I'm gonna suggest that if we're gonna have a solid discussion about that regional school district thing, which I think is likely to have quite a bit of discussion. Anything else we put on that warrant may get subsumed or get less than full attention to it. So I think we need to be thoughtful and careful about what else we would put on that warrant.
Well, the other thing about the school thing is, that's a large group meeting Monday night. I don't think all the questions are gonna get answered. And two is, what are they willing to provide to have a, kind of a open session where they're library or here, where the people can come in and ask the questions.
Oh, you're talking about this one coming up?
Yeah,
Well, they did offer an individual select board meeting, which we can still
Yeah.
take them up on that offer.
well, I think we should.
And the last couple times, I think they've come in twice.
They
I know
can't
at
remember
least
Lucy.
once.
I know I came to the first one, Ruth.
I thought they,
I think they've been.
Have you looked at
Yeah,
that
they
chart,
have been.
have you looked at their chart about how the dollars are done? It's like when you pay off your bond for
For the other school,
Well,
then it goes up.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a little convoluted to me, show me the money, tell me put a number to it.
so to speak to your point, Susan, I agree. I agree that we don't want to put things that are going to also require a lot of discussion and debate on it when we have the future of the school district, which is
I
like a
mean-
generational thing.
Right, I think C and D
But-
are fairly easy.
Well, that being said, can we put some things on there that kind of need to be done and make sense to do, they were kind of unexpected, and just not have too much controversy. Bylaw review committee proposal, I can't quite tell whether if we remove all the substantive changes, it's the kind of thing where there's just,
Yeah, I mean,
this is something we need to do. People will either trust us or they won't. If we have to go through every bylaw and reinvent our bylaws, yeah, it's not gonna pass and it's gonna take hours and hours and hours. But if we do it that way, frankly, it's not gonna pass at any town meeting ever.
Ever.
So the way that it needs to really be done is, look, we're not changing the substance of the bylaws. And I think we're all on the same page. We're not changing the substance of the bylaws in this go around. We are just clarifying what they are.
What they actually
Cleaning it
are.
up.
And tidying them up. And so if you have substantive changes, please propose them to the bylaw review committee and the select board, or do a citizen petition at a future meeting. But it's gonna be better for us and for everyone else if we have a very clear, concise general bylaws to begin with. Then you can ask
And you can
for
read it and see it.
different bylaws.
Right.
But for this time, let's not even discuss the substance. We have made every effort for this not to substantively change the bylaws of the town, but just to clarify them. That's why I would consider putting it on this kind of a town meeting warrant, because the theory would be, we can't go through every bylaw, and we can never do that. It just has to be you're trusting the work that we've done, and not blind trust, but you can go online, you can see the old ones, and we're really not changing things substantively.
Would we be wanting them to also do, would this be the right opportunity to take all the adopt NGLs and put them separate or not?
Yes, I thought, my understanding is that already in the works?
It's definitely in the works,
Yeah.
but I would, like, since we're talking about an iterative process, which I completely agree with, I just think, I think I wasn't clear whether we were talking about a 3-part process or 2, right? I just wanted, so what you've said so far is really clear, that this would be cleaning them up, but not making substantive changes. And I just wanted to be also clear on whether that does or does not include moving the adopted MGL out of the actual bylaws, which I think is
It
part
needs-
of that process,
Yeah.
but I wanted to make sure that we were in agreement.
It needs to happen, because basically what we want, that would be another whole pages-long thing of deleting bylaws. And what it needs to be framed as, which is accurate, is this never was a bylaw.
Right.
We just didn't separate out bylaws versus MGL acceptances. And we always should have.
Right, yes.
And we just didn't, and these are not going away, we're just moving them here.
Right. We
which-
still need to have a record of it.
So,
One other thing for the warrant, you haven't been privileged to this, we're talking about taking the money that was allocated to the firehouse for the last 3 years, and saying that those dollars will be used to pay for the lease, which will allow them to make the improvements in the facility. And part of the lease agreement would lay out what they would complete. But the lawyer says we can't just give them the money. There could be, the ADA thing would be a potential problem. And if we just gave them a check, then we would have to do prevailing wages. By making the payment to them in lease, the lease would say in 5 years, we'll complete X, Y, and Z. Here's your rental payment, and they have to do the work and they have to meet what's in that. They don't have to use prevailing wage. So that we would have to vote on converting like we did this in May, converting that warrant into something else.
so is that something that you think could be on the special town meeting?
Well, I put it this way, if we don't do it this now, we're not gonna have a lease agreement the next May.
Yeah.
Unless we have another town meeting.
Well, it's very possible that we do have another one.
I don't know, I know you
Because-
recuse yourself, but I think you need to know. I have a letter for Sean that she's read over, the lawyers approved, that said, here's our position.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what was I thinking? I really wanna get these bylaws done before the annual town meeting. So I'm hoping that if we don't put it on this special town meeting warrant, that it goes on something in this year, hopefully with a lot of advance notice. I'll call on you in a second, Mickey, I just need to finish what I'm thinking, which is that we don't know, like, they're saying they're gonna be calling it end of September for October 23rd, or that's what you can deduce. But it may get dragged out. My point being, if we have things we wanna have on it, like the couple of things listed there, let's have them ready to go.
Yeah.
Mickey, did you?
Yeah, I was just gonna say with the bylaw business, if you put it in a clear statement about it in the Monterey News, and I don't know whether you put on, then
You can put
Google,
on the
whatever else,
webpage
so that they can see it
before they get there.
before we even get the warrant out and they can think about it. Cause you only get the warrant, you don't have that much time to study it and think about it, so it could be in the Monterey News before that, so that they would understand that this is what we're doing and we're not making changes, you know, and
If they can get that document prepared sufficiently in advance, which could be tricky.
well, I
So,
mean, they don't have to, I don't even know if they have to have that whole document ready in advance, as long as it's explained that this is what is being done.
I see.
Uh,
Without the text though, I don't think that'll
well,
help.
I agree,
I think the whole text would be,
I agree with Mickey, but to speak to this particular case, the point being, the only the way we can put on a special town meeting is if the bylaw review committee somehow meets in a week or two and comes up with a clean version.
Otherwise.
And then we get it out available. Maybe the safer thing to do really is when they come back with a clean version in a week or a month or a couple months, we post that. And it's just posted for an extended period of time.
Right.
Maybe even have public comments. And they revisit after that. And then by the time we get to it at annual town meeting, there's no questions. Everyone is aware of what's going on. It's gonna add a lot to whatever warrant it ends up being on though.
Yep.
So, and what we have to do, by the way, because maybe you guys didn't get this update, maybe you did. So what we legally are doing is putting a clean version of the totality of the bylaws on the warrant. That's all that needs to be on the warrant. Nothing old needs to be on the warrant, no track changes need to be on the warrant. It's essentially going to be delete everything that exists now, and this is the clean version. But what we have to do is make available old copies and some kind of a track changes version as best we can on the website and with the town clerk by request, so that people can compare to see what is being changed.
So I actually thought of this the other day and I ran it by David and he kind of liked it and he actually did a mock-up for one of them. But something that would read, original, it would be original text, so, like article, I'm making this up, right? Article 3, section 1, original text, boom, suggested text, boom, and commentary.
Yeah.
And then go on to the next one, and it might even say unchanged or whatever.
Yeah.
But the idea being, because crossouts and the track changes is so awkward, and if you break it down, very few of the bylaws, I mean, there's an exception, right, the solar overlay or whatever, but I guess that's really its own bylaw, I don't know. But most of them are quite short, like a short paragraph.
Yeah.
At most. So if you have them write one over the other, even if it's like, changing the numbering, it's pretty easy to identify what changes there are, especially if the commentary tells you what to look for. And it's much easier to read than
Sure.
this was moved from here, and this was moved from here, and that was blocked out, and this was added, can be really hard to read.
I think that makes sense. My only concern with that system of doing it is, a lot of what I think has been done, based on what they've explained and what I've looked at, is reorganization.
But it still works because you say, original Article 3, Section 1 and Section 6,
Yeah.
right? And you have the original text of Article Section 1 and Section 6, and then this is
And so
change.
you order it by how it's proposed to be.
Essentially, yes.
So everything about the select board, which used to be all over the place.
Right.
Is now in one place.
Right. But it tells you it was this article, and this article, and this article, and this article, and now they're gonna be like this.
I think that makes sense. I was very happy to hear that what you can essentially do is delete and replace. And anything that we do there is great, but it's not legally
Binding,
binding.
or necessary, but I think it would be great to have a version where people can easily figure out, what was it, what's it gonna be, why? Makes a difference to me and whether I say yes or no.
and where you have all of the ones together,
Yep.
the originals, and then right after, this is how it's gonna be, these 5 are gonna be this one.
Right. And here's
that makes very good sense.
So we're kind of at the ball is in the bylaw review committee's court, and it's not an enviable court.
That's a chore.
I don't want that game.
But let's
Rather
just
than the dentist.
let's just say that if for some reason it's ready to go for the special town meeting, like let's say the school committee thing gets pushed off a month or two, or the bylaw review committee is very close to a clean copy and we just didn't know it and it only takes them one meeting to make that, then maybe it will end up on this fall special town meeting, but more likely it's gonna end up on another town meeting down the road.
Fair.
Unless the stars align. So then that takes care of that. If the stars align, we might handle it at the same. The regional school district proposal, we don't have any say over, except when we call the meeting.
Right.
We can have that discussion about whether we want a weeknight or a weekend. And also if we wanna do it at the same time as other towns. I think there would be some value, maybe, to doing it before other towns. I mean, if we're the 8th town to vote on it, and there's 7 yeses, or 7 no's, or something,
And I
it
get
seems
why
like
they-
there's a lot less.
I get why they want it on the same day, because they want the town, like, I can see the value in
Yeah.
having the towns think about it independently, and not base their decision based on what somebody else did. I get that.
Except what happens when you get towns that knowing how other, I think the earlier you are in the voting, if it isn't all at one time, kind of more power they have.
Okay, fair.
If you're the last town to vote and there's 7 no's, you
Right,
have to, it wouldn't matter if you voted yes.
right.
If you're the last town to vote and there's 7 yeses, if you set the tone, if you're early on, I just don't want to put Monterey in a situation where it's already been decided by the other towns. I would prefer that Monterey actually had it earlier, so if everyone's doing it on that Monday, Monterey does it on Saturday. Then we get to think,
It's the result.
I don't know. All I know is that as far as I understand it, we have the authority. By the way, I don't know if, I had thought it was gonna be different things. It's going to be a written ballot, like secret ballot, like for a debt exclusion. So it's gonna be at town meeting, it's not gonna be a town election, but it's not gonna be on the clickers, it's not gonna be a voice vote, it's going to be the yes and no papers.
Huh.
That's
They
just,
can- They can
Are they
actually
allowed
require
to do
that,
that?
that's state law, that's mass general law,
Must have.
that's what it has to be.
so they haven't allowed the clickers yet, huh, interesting. Because it is a secret ballot if it's clicker.
Yeah.
Right.
Clickers are secret, yeah.
Is there any opposition on C, the cap landfill thing? Peter had drafted up. I'll send that to Donna
Good idea.
if there's no opposition to that.
No.
And just see, maybe I'll just send her both what Beacon drafted and what Peter drafted.
Mhm.
And then we can have that wording ready to go.
Yeah. that's
We're
a
all
good
in
idea.
agreement that we'd be happy to have solar on the cap landfill.
Yes, yes, very happy.
And
And
then,
did we ever come up with an amount for the compensation?
no, that's my next question, is we
Okay.
never really fleshed out that discussion. If that's something we wanna put on the special town meeting warrant, we should really get thinking
Are they compensated now at all?
mileage reimbursement.
That's it?
I think it would help me to have some sense of the number of hours upon commissioners.
Well,
If they're doing the job.
the other thing is, what are the other jurisdictions doing?
Well, there's that too.
I don't,
We could ask Sophie to.
I don't know, I think of the neighboring towns. I've looked at town meeting warrants, and I don't recall, without doing a thorough study, I don't recall there being conservation
are.
commission compensation.
Yeah, and some of them are not real good research or search database when we do stuff.
Well, no, but the town meeting warrant should have everything on it. I
Right.
mean, if they don't approve money at the town meeting, where do they get it from?
Yeah.
Maybe it came out of the revolving fund.
Interesting, the Mass Association of Conservation Committee says they're volunteers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's typically it. I mean, it was an unfunded mandate. But now we pay agents. We had a bunch of information back when we put agents on the line, and it's Susan and I were on the board, I believe. We had a lot of information about how agents are paid. I don't think we got anything about how commissioners are paid, but I don't know that it's that important we need to do what works for Monterey.
Yep.
I was thinking,
Well, I just,
Should we
we
get
do, but it's just helpful to have an idea of what the range is before you make a call, like,
Well,
otherwise you're just making it up de novo.
well, what we can do is we could ask Noel, the two really current members of the Conservation Commission. Would that be helpful in
Yeah.
hourly?
And to also ask them, like, what they, realistically, what they think their number of hours in a year is. Not that we're necessarily gonna be able to compensate them at a reasonable hourly wage for all their hours, but, you know, if we're going to the town to say we should be paying these people, if we're saying, hey, they're working 5 hours a year versus they're actually working 500 unpaid hours.
Yeah.
Right, you're gonna get a very different response in how, whether people think they deserve to be compensated and what that kind of thing should be.
The other thing that we could ask, well, yeah, if we just know how many hours they commit.
Well, you could get a sense
Just
on,
start.
and how many, how many requests are they they doing? Is it-
And how many
Yeah,
hours does
they
the
just
average
say,
request
the
require?
average, that's what I would start,
Yeah. And that's probably, I mean, we probably know how many there have been on a yearly cycle for the last 5 years
Yeah,
without.
so I think that's where you start with, is, how many requests are they being asked to follow up on?
The
The
other,
other question is just, trying to pay them when they do this, could the permitting fee be changed so that it covers that expense? It's a real expense.
it's possible, but the way that I understand it, the permitting fees just don't end up amounting to much. Because we tried to pay the agent with permitting fees, and it wasn't close at all. And
In other words, it was a losing proposition for us.
yeah, probably by the time we pay 7, because we were supposed to have, I believe,
There's
7
7,
people on
yes.
the Conservation Commission. By the time we pay 7 people annually, you're probably, depending on the number, approaching the ballpark of what we're paying the agent. If we're paying 7 people, or budgeting for 7
Yeah.
people, so if we couldn't pay for the agent, I don't think we'd probably pay for all the commissioners. I remembered what I forgot earlier, which is that we need to decide how we're paying, not only the amount, but are we paying monthly, annually, or really the question is monthly or on a by-meeting basis, so attending a meeting, you get a certain amount, and if you miss the meeting, you don't get paid. Or is it just a monthly stipend? Like how the Board of Assessors and the Board of Health and the Select Board get paid, it's just a monthly stipend. So we can think about that.
Okay.
And I'll ask Noel for more information about how many hours that they work. Is there any unanticipated business?
Yeah, I have one thing. So, as you know, we're gearing up to do the open space thing.
Yeah.
And in, 2 things. One, Seth sort of sent out a poll, it's like we're gonna have the first meeting next Tuesday, but we have to post an agenda. So the question is, number 1, where should that get posted? And number 2, I actually don't know how to post a meeting. So I'm wondering, I have an agenda, but I'm wondering if either Melissa or you or Lori could help me figure out, we need to figure out where we're gonna post that. Ultimately, we may need to make a new page, but even for this week.
There's a there's a calendar.
Under the calendar.
Ooh, you gotta look at it. Because there's a calendar, usually agendas, by the way, our calendar online is our legal posting place.
Okay,
We try to keep up with the board,
right,
but this was one of my first items that I dealt with on the board, on the select board, was that there was some confusion for 5 years about whether that was a legal posting place or the website. It is
I knew the
website.
website, but I didn't know where on the website.
So I think if we just put it on the general calendar, maybe we should make a page for the open space and recreation committee, but Laura, you know how to do this stuff. Yeah. Is it gonna be a hiccup if there's no, like, usually you're posting it for planning board, select board, is it gonna be a hiccup if we don't already have a page created for them for it to go to there, or can it just be on the general calendar as a general event?
I'm not 100% sure, because usually I have to go under the board or the committee's name to post the event, so I haven't.
So,
We don't have, we won't have a.
No, but I figured it out.
we need to put it out. Okay.
if you can't for some reason just post it under open space and recreation, just post it as a select board meeting.
Okay.
But in the title, say, open space and recreation committee, and just make sure that everyone knows the select board is not meeting, it is the open space and recreation committee. But they're an ad hoc committee created by the select board. So, and that will get it online.
Right, I will send it to you after tonight.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So that was number one. Number two is, I know we kind of brainstormed a bunch of different people, we asked a bunch of different people. Did we ever reach out to the historical commission? I did.
For open space and recreation.
I reached out because that actually turned, when I was reading through the thing, they were like, oh, all this historical documents got plugged. So like, I didn't think of that as being part of it. So I did reach out to Rob Hoods and tell him that this was happening and asked if he'd be interested. That was literally this afternoon, so I didn't expect to hear back from him yet. But I just wanted to put it out there that this is the kind of thing where, we do have Seth to do the bulk of the work, and he knows how to do it with like a lot of the GIS stuff and other material like that. But it's kind of a substantial thing if you wanna do it right. So they're recommending lots of subcommittees. I'm just thinking I don't wanna exclude anybody from participating if they might be interested or care, right? I'd rather have them be part of the process. And I just wanted us to put that little hat on, even if they come a little late to the party, it might still be worth it.
I forget if we did or not. I remember we asked a bunch of groups and I
I
forget.
don't remember seeing his name on the list.
Historical commission, well, but Rob isn't on the historical commission.
Right, he just works.
He's on the historical society.
Society, okay.
Historical commission is Barbara Swan, Maureen McFarland, Susie Leon, Kate Laskar Budak. And maybe there's a couple people who are gonna be alternates or not, but I think it's maybe Bob.
And it doesn't even matter, the way this works, you can pretty much co-opt anybody from your community for any reason.
Yeah. It could be the member of the public.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I reached out to Rob because I know he's very involved with Bidwell and he has works a lot on the trails there as well as the historical part. So I thought he was a really good crossover person because he cares a lot about both history and open space. But there might be other people like that, just because I don't know their names right off the top of my head, doesn't mean they're not there. I just wanted to make sure that people who were interested, and maybe I need to write something up for them on our news so that people can know it's gonna happen. And if they wanna participate or come to the meetings, then they don't necessarily only find it by looking.
Yeah.
Anyway, just throwing that out there, that was it.
Yeah, if other people want to get involved, I'm not opposed to making more appointments, especially if, as you say, a lot of it is done by subcommittees.
That's what they recommend, and I don't know with Seth, with a professional person doing it, I don't know how much that will be relevant, I'll know more next Tuesday.
Yeah. And then, as far as agenda posting, I think Lori you're good to handle it.
Okay.
Otherwise, in a pinch, I can do it, but only, I might be more limited than Lori is in my abilities.
And if we can get it done, then by Friday, then we're good, and then next week I'll talk to Melissa about setting up a page for the committee and the process.
Any other unanticipated business? Okay. Comments and questions from the public? Alright. Minutes of 8:15, I actually did get printed out.
I did not print
I didn't
it
get
out.
them, Steve.
I printed out and went to the printer side. I wrote it on the screen.
Well, I had comments too.
Yep.
Did I give them?
Is that, no, that's the.
No, that's the ambulance.
Okay, by the way, where are the warrants and stuff?
Right on that table over there.
Okay.
That's for you. I'm gonna run the rest quickly while you all review the minutes. That's my final edit, so I don't have any.
2, 4. I'm trying to figure out what the order of the pages is, okay.
I think there's 3 pages.
Yep. Yeah, the blue looks like it's me. Did you not have edits or did you do
I
that
didn't
separately?
have any, I looked
Okay.
at it on screen at home.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, I didn't print it out. I should have, but I didn't.
Well, if you need to, we can wait till next week.
No, we don't need to.
Yeah.
You guys are better at it than me, you know, you gotta know your skill set.
Oh, yeah, you found that.
Yep. So I'm fine with all the changes you made.
Is there a stapler over there, or by any chance? Oh, I see it. I just want a hard copy to put in my mailbox.
Yeah. Good idea.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I really want to change it, so we could just. Maybe Frank.
Were you okay with mine?
Yes.
Okay, so then we're good.
Any comments, Frank?
No, we're good.
Okay, motion to approve August 15th, 2023 minutes.
As amended?
Yeah, as amended, yes,
Well, as
amended.
amended. Second.
And we'll call a vote on that,
Yes.
and yes, so that's unanimous approval, we'll just sign that and then read the hard copy in the box. Does someone have the checks?
They're right there.
Okay.
I just separated them.
Does someone wanna volunteer to
Sure, I'll drop one.
drop?
I can drop them off tomorrow morning.
Well, it just gotta go in that blue box.
I'll do it.
I can do it.
I can do it.
You guys,
I asked
rock,
them-
paper, scissors.
It just
My
might
car is more environmentally friendly.
it's on the way to both of our houses, on the, to everyone, no one doesn't go by the blue box.
Try buying, pop them in right now.
I'm gonna
Okay.
run and go do it right now. No,
Okay.
okay, so that's done. I'm trying to think if there's anything else, we'll meet next week, we have the meeting on Monday,
Monday at 6,
we'll see everyone there.
yeah.
Yep.
That ought to be interesting.
Yeah,
I'm getting questions about it now.
what's that?
I'm getting questions about it.
Good.
Yeah.
I mean, and I actually met a teacher from my school, and he's all for it. And he was explaining the reasons why. It was fascinating to listen to him from his perspective.
Did he have like anything that we haven't heard?
Well, he
before?
said from the teacher perspective, having larger kids, because he teaches computer
Larger
science.
rooms or
Or
larger
no,
kids?
More kids,
Okay.
larger kids. the interactions with the kids teach each other. When you get too small, sometimes it's not good and everything's going down. And he just feels that the schools, you know, if you don't do it now, like you said it earlier, it's a generational thing. When are you gonna do it? Great Barrington's been rejecting it for years. That's what he said.
Yeah, I mean, if they build a new school and keep their own district, I think it's very unlikely that, you know, it's not like you're gonna merge, unless there was really declining attendance at both schools, you wouldn't have the space.
But you see,
I could see why a tech of all departments would feel that way. Because you might end up, like when I went around, there were a few kids who were really into technology. I don't know if that same thing translates to other classes where kind of everyone's taking math and everyone's taking history, but it's an interesting point.
Yeah, and from his perspective, you know, I don't know, it was a kind of totally random. We sold something on Facebook, you know, and he brought his daughter out together. And I got to talking to him. And, you know, so it was an interesting conversation on a teacher's perspective.
There's so many moving parts to it, and that my biggest concern is I feel like they haven't. I think they've worked on a lot, and I don't wanna downplay the work that they did, because it's a big thing to do. I think that, play it on faith that the new building would be all that for the price they think it will be is of concern to me.
Do they have an updated cost estimate? Because the last.
That's why I think it's 100 million.
Because, well, but the last time they gave the 100 million figure, there was a very non-substantial way that they came up with it. Like the quote that they got from many years ago, and they added 10%.
Yeah, but if you look
I
at
think-
school, I would hope. that they-
That's not sufficient.
I know it's not sufficient. I would hope that the state, I mean, they're building schools, I'm sure in the state, they would know some kind of cost per square foot.
If the number that we're still getting is really the number from years ago,
Plus
with an arbitrary percent added on, that's a problem.
Well, actually, I've been.
I hope that there's something
I just
better.
know with that group on Monday night, I don't know if they're gonna have any chance to take questions.
Well, they don't.
I mean, but.
Well, should we preemptively schedule a meeting with them just to come to Monterey?
Well, I think we should do it, because I would like to I spent more time on the website today, and I was trying to figure out this whole cost, you know, the 5 towns and, you know, what is it, Stockbridge, Sheffield, and Great Barrington sit off the sea. And then, you know, they have the bond that we're still paying off, and then we have to pay, I forgot, like 1% after that's paid off. 1% of what? If it's an overrun, is $10 million, you know, how solid is that number?
I would go so far as to say we might wanna consider, coming up between now and after Monday to see what questions are answered, with a list of substantive questions we have, and submitting that in writing to them and asking.
Well, I've thought
written
about, you know.
answers, because a lot of times when we ask them questions off the cuff, they give what I would call
it's-
fairly vague answers.
No, it's like
because-
this, you know.
Right, exactly, but if we
Like
were
this.
to write the question, you know, do you have a cost estimate, I'm making this up, but do you have a cost estimate for the building based on square footage and 2022 square building cost for a school building per square foot? Or only, you know, do you have that? Like, it's a yes or no, and if it's yes, what's the number, right?
You know, and too, when Lucy, I came to the first meeting where Lucy was here and spoke, she had an entourage of people working for her, you know, old superintendent of the Pittsfield School, and then he had a couple people work for him. You know, I could start working up a list of questions on how, you know, because the devil's in the detail.
Exactly.
So, you know, I'm,
but I
you know,
think the
signing
win
off
question
on
might get
$100
the
million,
better. Right.
you know, the state's gonna pay for, you know, the first 50 or whatever it is. What? I don't know,
What if it's really 200?
I think we
I don't think
should,
it'd be 200, I mean, 100 million for a high school is not unusual.
I think maybe we should preemptively
particularly,
say that we want an individual meeting with them, because what's probably gonna happen after Monday night is the select boards are going to go and say, oh, we realize we actually wanna meet with you individually as well.
well, we should go ahead and do that now, and I don't mind starting the list of questions. You know?
Yeah, well, everyone can keep.
Two is, you know, when I think of 100 million, if they're doing prevailing wages. Oh my God,
I know.
Yeah, it's expensive.
it's unbelievable the difference.
So we'll meet with them, and I think probably Monday is gonna raise even more questions in our mind, so we can all keep our own list, and then at some point, I agree, putting it in writing probably makes a lot of sense.
And two is, you know, that if we have them here, I wouldn't mind giving them the list of questions saying, we want specific answers to these questions. So you have your time to do your homework.
And I don't wanna hear all the answers are on the website.
You know, they're not, because when I look at, they do that chart, it flows down, and, oh, here's these 5 towns here, they'll pay to, you know, finish paying their bond to 2032, and then they'll pay 1%, 1% of what, you know?
Does anyone know if we have a meeting next week,
A meeting of what?
of anyone coming to our select board meeting?
Yeah, but don't we meet in the library next week?
Oh, we do, so next week's out of picture, but maybe the following week. My only concern or urgency is if they're really planning end of October vote, we should be meeting with them very soon.
Soon, yeah, I
So
would
maybe
agree.
we'll ask
But
them
So
about the
week
following.
after
How do
next.
we let them know that we want to have a meeting,
What's that?
you know?
Individual meeting?
Yeah.
They asked initially, and whenever I responded, I said we were open to the 8-town joint meeting. I didn't say we'd also like you to come in one-on-one.
But I think you
But I
could
think
let
we
them
should,
know.
oh yeah, no,
You
it
know,
should
have
be.
a talk
I
about
would get it, I would get it, like you say, after Monday, a lot of these.
Well, I'll
reporters are
probably
gonna say,
get
"Oh
it
my
out."
God."
Hopefully tonight or tomorrow. and-
Because, you know, it's like, when you have people ask you questions, I'm not sure what to say about this. I haven't looked at the the transportation, you know, they have that, you know, saying it's,
Study.
you know, it's gonna be pretty well equal. I'm like, well, who did the math on that? You know, that's, you know.
Yeah.
You know,
There's a lot of moving.
So, but we'll see you Monday in Sheffield.
Okay.
yeah,
And other than that, are we ready to adjourn?
I think so.
I think I'm ready to adjourn.
Okay, that's a motion?
That's a motion for us to adjourn the meeting.
Second, and we'll vote,
Yes.
Yes.
and yes, so it's unanimous. Meeting adjourned at 7:52 PM.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Shut down. Yeah, thank you.
How's it going, Frank?
Oh, it's going